Welcome to Tara Talking, the podcast that's named after the blog that's just me, telling stories to offer help, healing, and hope as you journey into your passionate, purposeful, and prosperous life. Thanks for coming along on the ride, and now on to today's topic. Hey guys, welcome to today's episode. In this episode, we're kind of taking it back a few years. It is something that I had shared on YouTube and then as a vlog on Tara Talking, the blog, when I was going through it. And it was a trip that I had taken alone after a lot of stuff had been happening in my life. It was after finding out about what was going on in my marriage that was the nail in the coffin. We had the nurse who worked with my daughter try to take her own life by using some of my daughter's IV medications right there on our couch. There was a lot of chaos and destruction and struggle and hurt going on in my life at this point. And as someone who has heard it pointed out, they said, Tara, my gosh, you sound so much happier than you did in this video, in this podcast. And that made me tear up because, sometimes you're going through your journey and you know that you're in a better place, but you don't always take the time to stop and look back over your shoulder and see just how far you've come. So I want you to listen to this episode and get both of these ideas, both the idea that there are lessons to be learned from going inward, from going deep, which is what we did in the Sweat Lodge. And that also you're always growing, you're always improving, you're always changing. And don't be afraid to kind of look back over your shoulder and see how far you've come. That's so worth it. It's so worth it to both do the inner work, to go in, go deep, learn the lessons, and then a few years later, look back and see how far you've come. So I hope that you enjoy listening to this story from my time in a Mayan traditional sweat lodge, which is different than, First Nations people's sweat lodges, which I understand that. And this was just simply my experience at a place where I was at. And after you listen to this, then I'm going to come back on and kind of talk a little bit more because my thoughts were kind of jumbled in this video, but I think it's still important that you hear it. So I'm going to come back after this and talk a little bit more about what I learned, what that looked like, how it helped me even today, and how it can help you. What I learned that can help you move forward in your life. So I hope you guys enjoy this. So I decided I wanted to do at least one Tara Talking vlog while I was down here. I don't know when I'm going to post it because I don't know what I'm going to say. What else is new? I hope you can hear it. I have the balcony door open so I can hear the ocean for one last time. I'm currently waiting to find out what's going on with my flight. It's an exercise in frustration and futility. Trying to figure out why your international flight is delayed, and when you try to call the airlines, it's a long distance call, so you're either getting jacked on the regular phone or you're using cell phone minutes at a rate of like $1 billion a second. So either way. So I called some cute little girl who speaks some English at the front desk, and she's supposed to be calling me back, so I'm going to have to interrupt this. But anyways, it's been an amazing trip. I came down here knowing that I wanted and needed to just do a lot of thinking and soul searching and some relaxing. I didn't want it to be just like, coming down here to the beach to like do yoga and crap, because that's not going to happen. But yeah, so it's been good.
It's been good. There is something truly healing about the ocean and the sun to me, and that was good. And then yesterday, I think what really kind of tied everything together for me was going to this. It's like it's like Six Flags, basically. It's like this. There's four amusement parks, but they're like natural things, like a forest, and they have like animals that are kind of like a zoo, and then one of them is like an aquarium, and then one of them is just zip lining. And I don't even. Oh, the fourth one is just the ruins, the Tulum ruins. And so the tour that I wanted to take, I didn't get on because it left at dark 30 in the morning, and no one in my limited Spanish and their English could give me this information until after the fact. So I ended up settling to go on this other tour. But, it's funny how sometimes that works out, how God will make things happen so that you're supposed to be where you're supposed to be. So I went on the secondary one, and one of the optional activities was to do this Mayan sweat lodge. And this place that I went to is very much about the culture and the traditions and what Mexico is all about. And this was really an amazing thing, just to be part of something that's centuries old, and that it's carried on in the same way. And I know it sounds like heebie-jeebie to some people who just aren't into that thing, but I mean, that was my major at school, was anthropology, so studying what other cultures are doing and why they do it. So I just absorbed this. And it was weird because I can understand a lot of Spanish. I can't speak it back, and I don't catch everything, but I can get the gist. But one of the ladies who worked there realized that I was the only English speaker, and came over and was just softly translating for me everything that the guy was saying, and it was really awesome, the initial ceremony. And then you go into the sweat lodge, and you start out, and it's like 90 degrees in there, which is still pretty hot. And then they bring in these volcanic rocks that are on fire, and he pours tea over them to make them hotter. So it got up to 130 degrees in there, and then you go through this process that the Mayan warriors used to have to do before they would go out and fight their battles. And the guy he was very soothing, and I think there was just so much truth to what he was saying about how the part that really got me, and I'm probably going to tear up at this, was he was talking about how as parents, and mostly as mothers, it was in some Mayan tradition, last night being the third night of a full moon, was celebrating women, and women being the bearers of life as mothers. And he was talking about having this unconditional love, and how we do that for our kids, that we go through these they can go through dark times sometimes. They're scared of the dark, or they're scared of monsters under their bed, and they're scared to do new things. And as parents, you just come alongside them, and you hold their hands, and you go through these dark times with them, even if you yourself are scared. And that comes from our strength from within, is what allows us to be able to walk through those scary times. And I can't put it all into words, but it was really a powerful ceremony. And then coming out, you're so relieved to get back out into the cooler air, which was still probably like 85 degrees and super humid. But you get this bowl of cold water dunked over you, and then you go down to this natural pool. And so you have the magic of the fire, and then the magic of the water, and you get in this natural pool, and your pores close back up, and you keep all of that strength locked inside because your pores close it in. This, again, is me trying to understand the Spanish. But there was also this option to go jump off of a cliff into the pool, to just grab hold of all of the strength that you just received in this warrior ceremony and use it as your courage to jump off of this really high place. And I knew that that was one of the things that I wanted to do. And I don't know why. I can't explain it. I'm not really a daredevil. I'm not a fan of heights. I'm not super scared to death of them. But I knew that I needed to symbolically take this leap of faith, if you will, or just this, to let go, to not have the next step, set in stone. And sorry, my mom's gonna yell at me about that. And I did it, and it was pretty amazing. I mean, it was you jumping off of a cliff, a ledge, like 15 to 20 feet high, and they're telling you just take a big step. You don't think about it. You don't, you don't be scared. You just hold on to the courage that's in you, and you jump into the pool. And I did, and it felt so amazing. I can't put it into words, but it was an amazing thing, and it did feel somehow different coming back up to the surface after that. It was what I needed, and I think that I'm coming back now with a renewed sense of myself. Definitely, still don't have it all figured out who I am. But having gone through the last few months being very hard, dealing with some hurts, I think I'm coming back happier. I think I've let go of that pain. I don't need to hold on to it for any reason. And I hope that I'm a more loving person. I hope that I'm able to show it more to people around me and to people I don't get to see every day but still interact with on some level. And I can't wait to come back here. I hope I get to. It's been an amazing trip. I have used that word amazing. But it's been really awesome. I think that's about all I was going to say about that. But maybe I'll have more later.
You see what I mean about hearing some of that pain, hearing what it was that I was going through. And to be fair, I tear up talking about my kids all the time. So it wasn't even so much about where the tears were at as much as it's about hearing that I knew I was stuck. And I knew that there was an unstuck place. I wasn't sure how to get there, but that time, that ability to stand there on the edge of that cliff and, like I said, make that leap of faith was so instrumental in my life. It was a very physical act that reflected the emotional and mental battle that I was waging inside, and indeed the spiritual one, because it was an act of faith. It was an act of realizing that when I knew when I came back from that trip that at some point the hard actual discussion regarding getting a divorce was going to have to happen. We had been kind of living in this, place and space of trying to just get along for the kids. That's as best as, we were just going to kind of muscle our way through until the kids were older, until we could make some better decisions. And it wasn't a decision that we made out of, it wasn't the wrong decision at the time, I guess I can say. Now, looking back, and to anyone who's in this place, I would absolutely say, don't ever stay together for the kids. It's so much more damaging. But at the time, it was the best information that we had. But I knew that coming back from this trip was going to be, welcome to the big leagues. And now things are getting real. And because that was going to be the change in my life, it was going to alter so many different relationships. I knew that it was going to change, obviously my family dynamics with no longer being married, with no longer having that helper there, with no longer being the family unit that we had always been. And that was going to alter then how both of our families viewed us and saw us, and friendships were going to change. Our 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 life to that point had been very much about being in church, and there is some stigma being a divorced couple in church. It changes a lot of stuff. So I knew that what I was staring down was not going to be an easy battle, but I knew also that it was the only step I could take. When I got up there to the edge of the cliff that we jumped off of into the pool, it was a much longer drop than what I had been expecting. And yet there was nowhere else to go. For me, there was no turning around. There was no going back and walking down the easy path. And that was very symbolic of where I was at in my life. I knew that I just had to step out and let the water catch me. Let whatever happened, whatever was going to happen, happen. And that's where I was with that. Inside of that sweat lodge, some of the other things that really came up that I couldn't put into words at that time, but now, a few years removed, I can honestly say that so much of it has become the basis of where and what and how I walk women and men, just humans. I walk humans through this journey of, you've got to dig in. You've got to dig into where that pain is and be willing to let go of whatever that pain represents, whatever it is that's holding you back, whatever it is that's keeping you stuck in the struggle. You have to be willing to look it in the eye. And so many times we don't, because we're afraid of it. We're afraid of speaking a truth out loud. We're afraid of the ramifications of making a decision like being ready to get divorced. We're afraid of looking at a situation because we're afraid that maybe we were a part of the problem. There's all this fear wrapped up in what we are afraid to look at. And what happened inside of that sweat lodge was that there was nowhere else to go. The fear that there was, I don't remember, maybe 20 people in there, and it was the space for maybe about 5. It was very tight quarters, and it was very dark, and it was very hot. And you could hear everyone else ready to release their anguish, release their pain. The sweat lodge leader had us go through an exercise where we were literally screaming everything out, letting all of that energy, all of that hurt, all of the fear, all of the all of the pain come out as a scream to the point where we had no more breath left in us. And it was very symbolic of the fact that when you hold on to fear, that's a place where love cannot go. There's only 2 things in life, fear and love. You're either acting out of love or you're acting out of fear. And yes, there's a continuum, if you will, of varying degrees of fear and of love. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to fear or love. And if you're holding on to fear, if you're not willing to face fear and let it go, that's a place where love cannot be. And love is the way by which good things happen and life gets better. It can't get better if you're too afraid to look at it. That is, I think, one of the biggest lessons that I actually really truly learned from the sweat lodge, was to start letting go of the fear. And I started learning to let go of the fear once I could face the fear, once I was strong enough to say, I know in who I am, I love myself enough that whatever comes up in this fear is not going to break me, is not going to sway me, is not going to alter who I am. And in fact, it's only going to make me better when I can look at this fear. Those were some of the lessons that I learned in that sweat lodge. Those were some of the lessons that I had to walk through 5, 6, 7 years ago that have made me who I am today. And I'm so, so very thankful and grateful for them. They were so tough to go through at the time, as you could hear in my tears. And maybe if you really do know me in real life, you maybe can hear it in my voice that there is this better, happier, more loving, more accepting self that is Tara talking. And I'm so glad that I went through those lessons, because through that I have found why I'm here. And it is because I am here to help others. I am here to help you if you're ready to face those fears, if you're ready to start digging in to what that looks like for you and how you can turn it around, how you can start to live happier and better and stronger and more ready and capable of taking on whatever comes your way, because you get to start being the one in charge of what comes your way. You get to stand up and own the power that has been given to you by the divine. You are so worth whatever it is that you're wanting to improve in your life. You are so worth it. But you have to know that. You have to believe that before it can start to change. I can't take you into a sweat lodge, but I can walk you through some of those lessons if you're ready to take them on. I hope that you've enjoyed this episode of just kind of hearing some of the things that I have gone through. I hope that it strikes a chord within you, that you can also start to do these things, make these changes. And there's plenty more where this comes from. Those lessons from the Sweat Lodge didn't end there. They don't end here. There will be plenty more episodes talking about it. But if you have questions about this, if you want to talk about what my experience was, or if you've had a Sweat Lodge experience, whether that's literally in a sweat lodge or whether it's a time when you came to this place where you were screaming out all of your fears, I'd love to hear about it. Maybe we can have you come on the podcast and talk about it. Maybe you can just let me know what came up for you, and we can work that into a future episode. But I'd love to know what questions or what thoughts you have on this. There's multiple ways to get back in touch with me. If you, like me, just kind of turn your phone on and you're listening to podcasts while you're out doing your thing, there in the show notes, there's ways to get in touch with me, either by email, being on my group, checking out some of the courses that I've created for you. I'd love to hear from you. So go check out the show notes, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thanks for being here, you guys. Talk to you soon.